Woo-hoo. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to Play It Painted Live. Every time I open like that, I don't know what the hell to say right after. And I've been doing this for some time now, but whatever. So tonight is, I've titled the name of the episode Slow Night, because that's that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. It's kind of a slow night, starting late, doing the thing. I haven't even set up the YouTube side of this. I just turned the camera on, and we're gonna figure out what we're gonna paint tonight. Again, the name of the title of the episode is Slow Night, so we're gonna go super slow. Okay, it's gonna be a little bit different. I normally consider myself a production guy. Like, I go pretty quick. At a rather aggressive pace, but I've slowed down a lot recently. I've been moving slower, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I mean, I normally paint faster and better under a deadline than I do, just kind of painting for fun. And this project in front of me is totally for fun. Okay, so let me just show you what this is. But I'm not painting this tonight, so I'm just going to show it to you and kind of tease it for you, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so believe it or not, this set of Takahashi University miniatures has to do with Guild Ball. And this is a project that I started as I kind of got into Guild Ball. All right, and let me pull up my YouTube feed and at least make us like somewhat legitimate here. So let's do that. That's good. All right. So I do have access to the chat whilst we are filming here. Okay. So I'm gonna make that nice and small. So with Guild Ball, I had two teams at the time, and I was like kind of entertaining this idea that I would do a third team. But at the same time, I was like, well, there weren't any local models, and so I was just going to proxy until the local shops had the models I wanted. So long story short, what this is this was a project I started a couple of weeks ago, actually maybe even a little bit longer than that, to proxy an engineers team. But I don't really like the engineers models. I'll be honest with you, I don't. They have some cool models, but when I look at the team, they're not very impressive. I may have to get my own engineers team and paint them myself and then at that point maybe I'll like them. But in the meantime, since I don't like the models currently, the thinking was I'm going to proxy them, and why not proxy them with some models that I really like? And I know, these aren't Guild Ball models, and they're not even close to Guild Ball models. They don't even represent the game. These models are just for fun, and that's what Takahashi miniature models are. Is they're for fun. You don't even use them for any of the Ninja Division games. They're just fun, collectible models. So this is an idea for an engineers team. Okay, so take it with a grain of salt. If this, they're just fun models. So here's a Marie Claude, for example, and I have these miniatures. I use these miniatures for Relic Knights, but I'm painting another set because, like I said, I want to have just a proxy set of miniatures, and I'm even thinking of like painting the names of who they are proxying under there. So Marie Claude. And then I'm going to use, this is part of that model too, is I would use this as the mascot. So this might, in the case of engineers, this would be Mainspring. Hey, what's up, Tori? So here we go. So that would be that. Marie Claude. And then, like a big 50 mil model like this could be Colossus, obviously. This is Sophology Club. So I'm going to paint these, but I'm like, there's really no urgency behind them. It's for fun. It's whenever they're done, they're done. I'm going to paint through them slow, and I've been painting through them kind of one at a time. So for example, here's this one's called School Band or whatever. She's got really bright eyes. This is a super fun model. This is actually one of my favorite models. Is this one, the School Band here? Absolutely love it. So this could be like either Velocity or Hoist for me, right? On engineers. I'm thinking more Velocity, right? Because then, you know, because this one here, the super sporty one, that could be Hoist. And then I have like this model here, which could be Salvo, because I actually took Tough Cookie here and I gave her 2 crossbows. So she could be Salvo. And it's another fantastic miniature. This one has a really horrible gash in its face, though. And it's making me super sad. Let me see if I can actually get it. See that? It's like a really bad scar right down the center of the face. And that's just awful. Because this is such a cool model. And I couldn't really fix that without ruining the sculpt entirely. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I mean, I may paint it and just give it, you know, I might actually paint that in as a scar. Because when you got a line that bad in a miniature, trying to fix it is extremely difficult. This miniature had some problems with her neck, so she looks a little funny. Her head is sitting at a really weird spot. So anyway, so that's just kind of a for fun side project I've got. It really isn't going to manifest in anything. Like, and you know, I also have the beach ball. The beach ball is going to be their guild ball. So whatever, it's a fun project there. Here's what I painted last week on the show. This guy, who's also really fun. This is from Helldorado. And he's just a fun model. I haven't touched Helldorado in some time, so just thought I would show him. He's a cool model. Figured I'd paint him on the show just so that we had something from Helldorado to show you. And then let me show you what I'm actually going to paint tonight, because I'm super lazy. So, and I'll explain it in a minute. So I'm also interested in, you know, I need to build another custom goal. You can see it's kind of painted here. I'll explain it in a minute. But this needs to get painted tonight. Okay. So that's kind of what's on the painting table. Again, we're going to go super, super slow. And I want to talk about Guild Ball a little bit. Before we can go super, super slow, though, I need to spray this bad boy, right? I need to spray that. I need to reprime it. This is a repaint, and there's some painted, unprimered areas of it that I need to prime and repaint and all that good stuff. And I need to eat a cookie. I'm gonna eat this almond covered horn. This half chocolate covered almond horn, which is amazing. That stuff's delicious. No, take a bite of that. And we're gonna prime and paint. All right. Let's see. I need some like stony type colors. Like that. Yeah, that is like a highlight. Yeah. It'll be mostly like a gray color. So yeah, that maybe something like that. With this US gray, that's a good gray. All right. Let's get to work here. All right, so my gloves on. Oh wait. Turn this bad boy on. Let's know what you're painting, what you should be painting. Tonight's project is this. I don't know what to call this. It's a Guild Ball goal, or that's what I'm gonna use it for. But it's kind of a hodgepodge of things. This is an old Grenadier miniature. For those of you who remember Grenadier miniatures, Welcome to Being Old. It's a very old line of miniatures. And I had this lying around in my bits box, actually. And this thing used to serve, believe it or not, this used to serve as an objective or a generic piece for a lot of games that we used to play back in the day, like Hero Quest, Fantasy, 40K. We used this little idol for that kind of stuff, and it was just super fun. It was just a really cool piece, and so I found it, got a little nostalgic. You know, this thing has been with me for, believe it or not, this thing has been with me for probably around 25 years now. Let's see. I should be painting, but I did my painting earlier in the day. I was painting my Space Marines. Ignore my comment if you don't like Space Marines or GW. I don't care. I don't care what you're painting. I mean, sure, lots of people paint Space Marines. It's a reality, so it doesn't really bother me. Don't worry about it. That's cool that you're painting. You're painting Space Marine stuff. That's cool. All right, so let's get to work here. So we're gonna give this a prime and then a paint, and we'll rock and roll, okay? Because once the base coating is done on this thing, it's gonna be very, very easy to paint. It's just a matter of how much detail do I want to put on it. This is going to be more of a scenic goal than anything, so and don't even sweat it. All right, and we're gonna prime. We're gonna prime with the gray primer. And this is probably going to use a little bit because whenever you're priming like this rock stuff, and it is going to absorb a fair bit of this paint. Got a little bit of a clog here. It's okay. Maybe hoping it'll clear. Not, I'll just work around it. Let me see if I can clear this jam a little bit. It's a pretty heavy duty jam I got going there. There we go. So I'm going to go a couple of layers here to make sure I've primed properly. Now, because it's painted already, I don't need this whole thing to be like totally opaque gray. But I do need enough primer on there so that the paint I intend to paint it with is going to stick. You can see? Why would you think I'd get mad if you're talking about painting Space Marines anyway? It's not like the topic doesn't offend me. What, if anything, I offend people when I talk about Space Marines, so the other way around. If you don't like me, like, taking a little jab at Space Marines, then you know. Like, I'm not so sensitive that I would be offended by the mere mention of space marines. Like, not like some delicate snowflake or anything like that. If anything, I don't like the whole trigger warning, topics being taboo. Let's not talk about this because I'm offended. That's like the opposite of me. If I find something offensive, I want to talk about it even more. And if I find out something offends people, I want to find out why. And some people don't like that. Some people, like, when they're offended by something, they don't want to talk about it at all. I'm the opposite. If I'm offended by something, I definitely want to talk about it. I think that, well, first off, for something to offend me, that takes quite a bit, actually. And secondly, this whole trying to police people's language and not bring up, not be allowed to talk about controversial subjects or opinions that differ from your own. I think that's, I hate to say it, but it's almost more of a thing for the younger generation of people that don't want to face, harsh reality. They don't want to see how cruel the world can be. They don't want to see, stuff like that, and they want to be protected from it. I think that's wrong. I think that's like the worst attitude you could have is, this is a horrible thing, so I don't want to talk about it. I don't want it, it offends me, it triggers me. I'm like very anti that. So if you are offended by it, then sorry, not sorry. Good evening. A couple of Davids hopped on. David Love hopped on, and David O'Connell. What's up, guys? I'm painting my little like false idol here thing. But yeah, if you want to say something offensive, dude, I don't know. Like, what am I offended? I'm offended by the idea of being overly offended. There you go. That's what I'm offended by. I'm offended by that. I'm offended by this the attitude of like that some people have that when I say I'm talking about them, that they have somehow cornered morality. Like morality, the moral side is an exclusive right that they have. That's what I find offensive. That's a very offensive concept to me. Like for example, my religion, Western religions. I'm just going to call it out, Western religions. There are Western religions that say, okay, this is what we believe in, and if you don't believe in it, you're wrong. You need to be punished. You need to live this way, so on and so forth. You're going to hell, whatever, right? There's Western religions typically are guilty of that. Eastern religions don't often have the same dogma. It's sort of like, here's what we believe in. Oh, that's what you believe in. That's cool, and we'll respect that, and you respect what we believe in. But that's a very Western thing. And if you belong to one of these religions, then and you're offended by what I'm saying, it's cool, whatever. Here's what I'm getting at, right? I'm talking about Judeo-Christian, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all share that in common. Like, we're right. Here's what we believe in. If you don't believe in it, you're going to hell. That's very different than, say, Taoism, Buddhism, where it's like, here's what we believe in. If you don't believe in it, so what? You're not going to enforce that. So that's what I'm getting at. Like, I don't like the concept of, this concept that some people have the exclusive rights to morality and other people don't. I've just never been that. I've never been that way. And so That if you want to talk about something that offends me, that's what offends me. Like, this is the right way to think. This is the right way to act. If you don't think or act this way, then you're morally wrong. I have moral high ground over you, and I get to judge you and what you do. Okay, I take serious offense to that. But anyway, otherwise, not a whole lot offensive. So anyway, I don't know how we ended up there. Offended, I can paint faster. Gotta prep for them demos. I'm painting my starter fishermen and butchers. Nice. Cameron says, "What's up? Going to Comic Quest this weekend to help him." Oh, nice. Thanks, man. That must be Callan. Finally painting up my Morituri starter for Arena Rex. Is there a Morituri starter? Like, what comes in the Morituri starter? I didn't realize that there were starters. I always thought that they were, you just bought the models individually. Huh. Yeah, let us know. What's in the Morituri starter? Heads up, Callan. All right. Anyway. So I'm going to explain this guy in a little bit. And now that that's done, I need to start base coating it, because why not? Where is... Yeah, I need a little bit of water here. Bloop. Octave, teach me the ways of the alchemist. You know what? Callan can do that. I might have to... Let me... you know what? Let's do this. Let me get past the airbrushing stuff, and then I'll shoot you guys a link if you want to hop in, and then we can talk alchemist. I would not consider myself an alchemist expert by any stretch of the term. I've actually only played about 4 or 5 games with alchemists, but you know, maybe you can get something from that. Just understand you're not talking to a quote-unquote expert. I mean, I even field Catalyst, and according to the internet, Catalyst is not a good model for the alchemist. But I actually have had, you know, some success with him. But whatever. Let's see. I missed your explanation of what that is, but it's cool, man. All right. I'll explain it in a minute. What model are you painting? I joined the Kickstarter, but apparently it's Urkek, Mago, and Zara. I have Mago and Zara, but I don't have Urkek. Uh-oh. I've got a pretty serious, got a clog here in my airbrush. All team in Guild Ball scale with skill, alchemists especially. I think alchemists I think they are a steeper learning curve team, but I also think they're a very, very strong team. You know, once you do understand them. All right, let's get this underway so we can talk some Guild Ball. So right now I'm just gonna spray some black gray as an undercoat here. Yeah, my airbrush is not doing so well tonight. We've got some clogging issues to deal with. Midas dictates a lot of the game. Smoke plays more into condition. I'm really excited about Smoke. Even after I sold my Alchemist team, Smoke is going to make me come back and rebuild them. Because I also agree with that statement that Midas dictates so much of how the team plays. Yeah, I'm having some real issues getting us to lay down color appreciably. That's okay. It's actually kind of a good thing because it's letting me work. It's letting me build up color a little more slowly than normal. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And that black gray that I'm using is pretty thick. AoE and condition control. Oh, you're talking about smoke. Yeah. Midas it's an interesting team currently without smoke because it's sort of, Midas is really an overwhelming entity within the team. That's not to say you don't have other good players, because you clearly do. Vitriol, Catalyst, some of my favorite in-guild alchemists, and I think a lot of other alchemist players would agree with that. I think Compound can be a very good player. He's good to have in the roster. He's probably not going to be in all your games. And then you have some good access to Union. So what is this model? This is a Grenadier Ancient Idol model. This is a lead model. It's I've had it for about 25 years now. One of the first models I ever bought, and it was painted. It was pre-painted at the start of the show because I had painted it way back when. And now I'm going to use it for a Guild Ball goal. Kind of reminds me of like Kali Ma from, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. So I'm just going to go with it. We're just going to paint it that way. Now you might be wondering, what team would have a goal like this? So I'm going to leave it to you guys. You guys tell me, what team would have a goal like the one I'm painting? All right, let's do a rinse out. Now let's see. The main thing I noticed in the last game is when Midas loaded up, he went to town with attacks, but wasn't getting the numbers I needed to generate momentum. Okay, yeah, that's what we're gonna get into, because the whole key to playing Midas, well, the most commonly way to play Midas is you rely on two things. You rely on your true replication. It's a big one. And you rely on single Guild Ball abilities. Okay? So I'm sure Callan might be able to explain this a little bit more clearly than myself. But if you look at Midas's card, you've got true replication, right? And that allows you to steal any it allows you to steal character plays from non-captains, right? And then when you look at Midas's playbook, he has a momentous Guild Ball on 1. That is what makes Midas so amazing, is that single fact, momentous Guild Ball on 1. Because when you start looking at other players' cards, especially other players on other teams, then you really start to see the beauty of true replication and Midas's playbook. So, for example, Scything Blow is a single Guild Ball play. Scything Blow is an amazing ability. So Scything Blow is what gives you all that crazy 3 damage on everybody within your melee range, right? Most players that have Scything Blow have it way deep into their playbook. Like they have it, it's usually like 4 or 5 hits in. I think Gutter may have it around 4 or 5 hits. I know Harmony has it around 5 hits. And so that's what makes it really, really disgusting to steal Scything Blow, and that's one of the reasons why people say, oh yeah, if you're playing against Midas, never take a character who has Scything Blow. You also have to watch out for things like Unmasking, even Ground Pounder, which is a double Guild Ball play, and I think Midas's double Guild Ball somewhere only at around 3 hits. So even double Guild Ball plays are incredible for Midas to steal. So the general playstyle with Midas is to steal, when the game is starting, you want to look across the field at the models that are being deployed against you, and you want to decide in the first turn, you're going to want to decide, here's what I need to steal. And if you're going to steal a combat ability, that's going to take your team one way. If you're going to steal a ball handling or movement ability, that will take your team another way. And the biggest example of that would be stealing Scything Blow. And let's say we're playing Alchemists versus Masons. So if you could either steal Scything Blow from Harmony, or you could steal Where Did He Go from Flint, for example. Both one Guild Ball plays. And there are strengths and weaknesses to both, right? So if you stole Scything Blow, the advantage to that is insane, because you're talking 3 damage on a single success, plus your heroic play. So if you use Midas's heroic play to give you +1 damage, that's 4 damage guaranteed per hit. If you loaded him up with 7 influence and you have a target that you can keep in 1-inch melee, that's the important part, 28 damage. 28 damage without even breaking a sweat. You don't have to bonus time. You don't have to do anything. The dice are telling you you're just going to nail that, right? 28 damage, 28 damage, 28 damage. And that just turns Midas into a killing machine. I should point out that's 28 damage on one target. You manage to have a couple of targets in your melee range, which you should. Now you're doing 28 damage per target. That's 56 damage per activation on a fully loaded Midas against, say, 2 models that are within 1-inch melee range. That is disgustingly, disgustingly good, right? And you can spam it all day. That's why Scything Blows, typically everyone agrees Scything Blows like the best thing he could ever steal. If you steal Where Did He Go, now you have 4-inch dodge that you have the option of buying for 1 influence, which is kind of a waste, or you just get that, you score that single Guild Ball, and you'll get a momentum, and you'll get the Where'd You Go. So if you do get Where'd You Go, now you're talking about Midas being more of the ball carrier scorer. He becomes more of the striker on the squad, as opposed to having Scything Blow on the team, where he really is kind of the most efficient killing machine in the game of Guild Ball. So that's just an example of 2 abilities that if you gave Midas would significantly impact the rest of the team. For example, so if you're going to steal Scything Blow, he's going to shoulder the weight of your takeouts, in which case you're going to want ball handling other characters who can handle the ball and possibly protect it if they needed to. So I'm talking Vitriol, Mist, Snakeskin. These are all good ball handling pieces for the team. On the other hand, if you want to go, if Midas is stealing a ball handling or movement ability, then he becomes more of a striker, and you may want your supporting cast to have some damage dealers in there. For example, you may want to have a debuffer like Calculus. Vitriol, still very good at either ball handling or striking, and you have other kind of hitty options in there as well. So that's kind of like my generic primer on Midas and Alchemist without Smoke. I don't have enough. I have no experience playing Smoke, so I don't really know what to tell you there. But anyway, let's see. Let's make it a hunter goal. It could be a hunter goal, but it's actually, I'll tell you what this goal is actually going to be for me. I took Super Shot my last game. Props, probably not the best given the situation I was in. And I think, who did you play in that last game? Did you play Butchers? All right. Anyway, I think that's enough of a paint job for now to just shut off the airbrush, because the airbrush is pissing me off. It's not doing too well tonight. and then we'll get on with. And then if you guys want to hop on and talk Guild Ball, absolutely would love to do that. Because hey, I love Guild Ball, and I'm not painting a Guild Ball model, but I'm painting something for Guild Ball, so we're totally down for that. Yeah, it was Butchers. Yeah, Super Shot's okay. I think that gives Midas a really, really good kick, but it's not something you're gonna. It doesn't take advantage of that single momentous Guild Ball that's in his playbook. So like I was saying, 28 damage and 7 momentum is nothing to sneeze at, right? And I take this from somebody that did it. I've done it in 2 games and complained when I did it because I was like, it makes Midas one-dimensional. Yeah, but one-dimensional, most amazing at that in the entire game. So let's see. What does Callan say? I'll not give up on Alchemists. I love their aesthetic too much. Me too, dude. I love Alchemists, and I will be painting them or repurchasing them and painting them. I sold my other Alchemist to Troy Perez, so here we go. Top targets are Unmasking and Scything Blow. Agreed. Against Butchers, it's definitely where'd they go from Shank. Yep, we talked about that. If they have him, because then you can play a scoring game against them, which is great. Yeah. You could alternately, you could steal something like Dirty Knives, which is cool, but then now you're spending influence on plays. It's not quite as cool. Wait, no, Dirty Knives does play off of a 1 Guild Ball, doesn't it? So basically, no, my enemy just is myself. Yeah, that's true. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to shoot you guys the link here, and we can hop on. And let's talk Alchemists. I do have some experience with Alchemists. Callan already kind of has what the similar type of advice as to what I was gonna tell you. Okay, so there we go. You guys have a couple links, and I think that's it. We'll see if you guys hop on. If you do, cool. If not, I'm just gonna keep painting. So I gotta shut off this. And yeah, that's true. The Alchemists they do actually require you to kind of understand what's on the other side of the field, and you really should be looking at, what am I going to steal this game when you're playing Midas. But see, here's the thing. I'll also say, yes, Midas is like the biggest influence on the team, but please don't let that message take away from the idea that Alchemists have some really, really good players that are not to be ignored. In my opinion, some of the best players on Alchemists outside of Midas are going to be Calculus, because Blind is still good despite the nerf. It's still a really good ability. Her poison abilities are really nice. They're very useful for the condition game. And then you have Vitriol, who is a great striker and alternate scorer. So I like to include those two. And then don't underestimate Flask. Flask with Vitriol and Calculus is a fantastic combination. What's up, Cameron?
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. So we're talking Alchemist tonight. I'm glad you brought up the topic because I think they're rad. And I'm gonna have a quick bite of this cookie because I'm hungry. So, are you painting?
No, I'm just I'm watching a guy on YouTube right now play Dark Souls 3.
That's cool.
And I saw you were doing a live show, and I was like, you know what? I'll just take this opportunity to bring up Alchemists.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if Callan's going to hop on. Oh, and I keep forgetting to break these out. These are like, the Horde's condition rings. These are great for Alchemists, for obvious reasons. So there's that. I will, but yeah, I'm totally going back to Alchemist at some point. But I think I was telling you last night that I played last night. I played Butchers for the first time, like a full Butchers team, and I also played Union for the first time, right? And that the whole building a Union team was accidental. I was buying Union members that played for my Masons and Alchemists, and I happened to pick up the Union starter because I needed Decimate and Gutter for other teams. And lo and behold, I have 5 Union models, so all I needed was coin. So I tried them out, and I didn't really have a high opinion of playing Union because it was, to me, it's like, okay, Merc faction, good individual models. I don't really want to play a team of individuals. I want to play a coordinated team. And as it turns out, though, I really like Blackheart's playstyle, and I liked how the particular combination of the models I have actually can play together as a cohesive team. So I really think that kind of changed my direction last night. I was really looking at starting up NGs, and I still might do that, but now I kind of have Union as another option here for what I might do. So
Cool.
Anyway, and so that's why I'm going with this, because this is kind of like a an exotic island idol that let's say Blackheart has come across and now uses as a goal. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. This is going to be a generic yet more Union mortician themed goal, because it's got like piles of skulls here, and it's got like the whole evil idol. I could actually put Tufts in it to make it more of like a hunter style goal. I think that would work also. There's Callan.
Hello, friends.
Hey, what's up, man? So I was just explaining that this is my generic Union type goal, because it's got that Blackheart piratey feel to it.
Yeah, like he stole it from some island.
Yeah, like he and the center gem missing is all part of it too. Like you gotta hit the hole with the guild ball, and and then the treasure chest pops out or something.
I like it.
So yeah, but yeah, I think I like the alchemist topic, because I really do think they're an interesting team. Midas obviously has so much focus on that team, but I was also saying, not to lose sight of the fact that the alchemists have some really good players as well, and in order to make the whole thing work, you are gonna center it a bit on Midas and what he replicates, but you also have some really good supporting players in there.
Yeah, I think they remind me a lot of Morticians in a way, because Obelisk can definitely be that player too, where it's like you're stacking like 8 influence on them, and there's like such a tendency to do that, but the actual payoff, if you do that all the time, like, and just eliminate one person, like 8 influence is like 60% of your influence on like a high influence Morticians team. On a 12 influence Morticians team, hopefully you might have some furious people at that point, or some big guys, but then you only have 4 influence left. So if you, and especially also it lends yourself to top of the turn activating Obelisk, so you don't lose the influence, which his leverage is like holding him off so you can wait to play him. So definitely in that faction, it's kind of the same thing where like Midas, you don't have that much dependency on it, but he's still like a high defense, and if you're stacking 7 influence on him, that's the majority of your influence in one model, and if they're able to disrupt that in a meaningful way, that could be like a real killer for your team. So he is an MVP captain, so it's really easy to do that, but it's also good to spread the love sometimes, because sometimes you have a better threat, especially if you're playing a more like scoring focused Alchemist team. Like a lot of times it actually is better to spread, because you want multiple mobility people and people that can go after the ball and score consistently, versus like kind of like how Fish play, essentially, where like you're trying to have multiple threats that can take the ball and go and score. Say with Alchemist, you can do the very similar thing, because I think they can take Mist too, right? And they can take.
Yep, you can take Mist.
Mist, Visceral, and Midas,
it's
especially
pretty
if you
disgusting.
Get ability, it's like and then the thing I was talking about earlier, it's like you look at that team, and like even Fish, like you're matching it pretty well with them, and then you also add in compound. So if you're actually playing Fish in a scoring matchup with them, And that lineup,
got a
then
goalie.
Compound kind of like your extra like tilt advantage because now they have to play around it. Not that they don't have the tools to, but it'll slow them down. Which that's what you gotta do with Fish.
And you have, and the other good thing about Compound too is you have a influence efficient model back there.
Yes.
And so you've got Gluttonous Mass, you have the Rush Keeper, so Compound is fantastic in that lineup too.
Oh, and he's amazing too in that matchup specifically because when he rushes, like, because normally like a lot of times the problem with Fish too is like they can actually counterattack and like get away or do something like that, but Gluttonous Mass prevents that. So like he literally just comes and knocks you down. They're like, well, crap. It's like.
Yeah, I played a game with Alchemist where I had I stole Scything Blow, and I had the whole scoring lineup, Vitriol, Mist, and Compound, and that was really disgusting. So now you have like the perfect killing model, and then you have like a really, really good scoring team backing him up.
Yeah.
So that was a rather disgusting combination. That's not one that you're going to get very often, but yeah, that's kind of an example of how the Alchemists play, and how to build around what Midas is gonna take. I really do like Calculus. I think she's one of my favorite models on the team, just because the Blind and the Poison Cloud are kind of staples. I like Blind on a key model is fantastic, but I also would say like Blind and the fact that Midas can drop heavy burden on people is without even stealing anything. He's got heavy burden. That is disgusting. Like never overlook that, especially like if you're playing against Butchers. Heavy burden on Shank is a murder. Like that's really tough. So I really like Calculus in there because she's just kind of stability for the team. And then I also like Vitriol just because Vitriol is just fantastic for damage and for scoring goals too. And she's more of a backup striker for me, but yeah, it's nice to be able to load her up, get her. She's got more inherent mobility than Midas does, so she can get across the board faster. And let's not downplay the essentially 9 guaranteed damage with her if you pop the smoke cloud.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hello all. Hey, what's up, Blade Wolf? Never give up on the teams you choose. Agreed. Yeah, I like that, especially with Guild Ball. I don't think there's a bad team in Guild Ball. I really don't. I don't think any one team is bad. I think there are steeper learning curves, but I definitely don't. And the teams with the steeper learning curves seem to have the higher payoffs.
Yeah, the learning curve is what I'm experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, frankly, I didn't even notice true replication like the first 2 times I played Midas. I was like, what the hell does that do? I don't know.
Like, why?
He seems really hard to hit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like you said, like no team's bad, but it's kind of like I love to make League of Legends references or like but like there's like characters that like your base or like guilds that like your base starting off like ability to win or play well is like at like a lower bar, but then your your ceiling kind of goes up. Where there's other teams where it's like takes you a lot longer to reach like that level of competency versus like Butchers, for example. It's like it's very clear. It's like okay, like I'm gonna go kill people, and as a player starting out, you can be like, okay, I know my goal. I'm gonna go kill people. Fisherman, oh, I'm gonna go score. Where you hand someone like a team like Alchemists or Morticians or some of those other factions, they're a little more like it's not quite clear. Like I mean, if you just pick up Alchemists as a new player, you're not like, oh, okay, like I'm just gonna go score. or I'm gonna kill people. You're like I'm gonna poison people, but then like you kind of quickly find out like okay, that's not necessarily the most amazing thing. So like it kind of you have like you rely more on synergies and there's like a bigger learning curve. But yeah, I don't think any guild's bad at all. And like I said earlier, I think like in the comments.
What do you think about Catalyst? because that's the one where people say, well, he's not very good. I've had some success with Catalyst.
I haven't had him do much when I've played against him.
Okay.
I think that I guess a nice part is that he gives you 2 influence for a big guy, which is pretty cool versus like a lot of the other stuff that a lot of the other kind of big guys like you won't get that out of. I mean, I think like off the top of my head, like Brick gives you 2, which is awesome. But he very much is like plays off of conditions, and I find that when you play in a tournament, especially I think also especially when it's first started out and Hemlock was really strong, most factions always had Hemlock as a sideboard too, which against Alchemist is just like brutal. Like anybody with like the magical potion or brew and able to clear conditions for not momentum is like so strong in this game. So I think that was actually part of his initial like issue, and I don't think Midas necessarily supports the condition game very well. Where I think like someone like Moke and like some of the new people that have come in actually support that a little bit better. So I think he actually has a chance now more than he did in pure season 1. And I think that's probably why people weren't as hype on him. Or like most of the material you'll find people aren't excited about him, but he's still playable.
Yeah, for me he was more opportunistic. Like he would just kind of hang out for most of the game and then wait for that perfect moment where the opponent's having a hard time clearing conditions, and then you load him up, and then especially if you're getting first activation, and so it is very situational, but he can be devastating if you've got it all lined up. The other downside to that though is you can at least do a miniaturized version of that with Flask, and so I can kind of see but although there was a game where I did both, and that was really disgusting.
Yeah, I think that
where it was like I had some conditions on somebody through Compound in, did a bunch of splash damage, and then later in the turn I reapplied some of those conditions, and then threw Flask in, and then that was pretty gross, a gross scenario there.
Yeah, I think he can like if he has those buffs, he goes off. I actually think it's underrated too that because like most people no one uses like Rabbit Animal because it's pretty usually high up in people's playbooks, but he actually has it momentous on 3, which actually seems like a good place for it. Because if you think about it, it's a big guy coming in, you Rabbit Animal them, maybe if you get a big enough hit, you could wrap on it and a happy day on a big guy or something. But giving someone -4/-4 move definitely holds them there, not that they're already engaged. But adding poison then gives you the +2 attack, and then that seems actually a pretty good point then to keep beating on people pretty hard, because you go to attack 8 at that point, which seems very good. I don't know, I think there's a bunch he's pretty fast for a big guy too, which is very nice, 5'8". That's super fast. He actually has a 2-6 kick. He has some pretty good stats for a big guy. I don't think he has the staple he just doesn't have the staple tough hide or gluttonous mass, but he does 27 hit points. It's pretty good stats. It's probably just not as what people normally want to expect out of him, out of a big guy, just because he is potentially a momentum battery where everybody else in Alchemist is fairly high def armor. Actually, when I found out Midas was 5, was was the first opponent I played. I was playing Shark, and I had kicked off, and they passed it to Midas, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna take Shark, and I've never played Fisherman before, but I knew it's okay, I could do this kickoff strategy, and I could try to go score really early and use this legendary, and I went to go after him. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go tackle the ball, and then I was he's 5 defense, and I'm like, crap, 5 defense is pretty good in this game as far as tankiness goes.
Yeah, and Shark's tackle is kind of out at 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, and even I think the other problem too with me was you have to tackle the ball, but then you also have to generate momentum somehow to kick the ball as well when you do those attacks. So it's the amount you need to go do that and then score is kind of rough when on a 5 model if you don't roll really well.
Sure. I do think that Season 1 Alchemists have a hard time generating momentum without the ball. They do struggle with that because they don't have, outside of Midas and maybe Vitriol, they don't have that momentum generating attack piece. So
Yeah.
that is an issue with Alchemist.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
kind of
the
like
first thing I noticed.
yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of reminds me of like engineers, where you have all these like ranged spells and plays, but you're not getting momentum from them like engineers do. So you're like, okay, so like you're almost relying on conditions to lower your opponent's potential momentum pool in a way. In that way, if you don't have the ball, but yeah, it's definitely they definitely don't have like the. It's almost like you have to supplement then, like with maybe there's like a union player you can bring in that can do that, but yeah, they don't really have any momentum on damage. Calculus, but you don't really want Calculus necessarily to be like the in-your-face person.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it just relies. That's why people are, especially too, where MVP might is so hard in season 1 because you pretty much have to. You send them in, you get them to generate a ton of momentum for you.
So what were you saying, Cameron?
The first thing I noticed was I would always not have momentum, and situations came up where I needed momentum, and I was getting frustrated.
Yeah, because yeah, like we were saying, it's really hard to generate momentum with that team because their attack style is really different. I don't know. Maybe I forget if Snakeskin has momentum generating damage or low in her playbook. I forget. 3 models with clone is pretty hilarious though.
Dude, that's awesome. Clone is so
If
sweet.
you have half of your team has clone up, then that's super funny.
Well, and now Mist got nerfed because Mist used to be like you had like the low momentum dodges and tackles, so like that you kind of generate momentum like that with like a fish style player like Mist,
Mm-hmm.
but now doesn't quite
Mist
have that.
is still a beast, man. Mist is still that.
Oh yeah, like really dumb when they first released their long. Like same with Hemlock, like having anything with base defensive 6 is pretty ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Which Hemlock was, but Mist, yeah, like so much momentum generation, so good at mobility.
Man. So, like I was saying, I ended up with this Union team. So it's all the Union guys I was buying. So it's essentially Mist, Snakeskin, and the starter, which is a really good ball handling team. And with Gutter and Blackheart, you have some damage in there. But it was super fun. I was pleasantly surprised. I did not think I would like playing that team as much as I do. I am looking. I may add like either Minx or Rage to the team. Have a little more bash in the squad, but it's not a priority. Like right now, they're my fun second team. That can do some pretty cool stuff. This question came up, and I want to get your guys' input on it. One of the local guys here, well, as you guys know, the Leon and the Fish are kind of on the tear, and so they're kind of the team to beat locally here in Orange County. And so one of the guys plays a Rage-led Union team, and he's just asking, he's like, I'm frustrated because I don't know how to clear a ball with my Union team. I don't know how to keep that clear from the Fish. And I was looking at the Union cards and going, okay, so they don't have a whole lot of things to slow you down. In other words, they don't have heavy burden, they don't have smash shins. They don't really have your quote unquote snares. So I don't know really what to tell the guy other than, try to beat the crap out of them with a Rage team. Try to beat the crap out of them. Try to score your knockdowns with Fangtooth. But I don't know what. I mean, if you guys have any other thoughts on that, let me know.
So my first vote would be if you specifically know you're playing against Fisherman or it's in your tournament 8, I suggest taking Snakeskin because Snakeskin with stacking buffs is actually one of the hardest models to take the ball away from.
Yeah.
Because you get really high defense and you get clone out of Snakeskin, and then you're like, okay, well, it's so much resources to take the ball that even when they finally do, like they're probably going to be out of influence to like do anything with it unless it's like Shark or somebody. But most of the other players, well, it'll take them so much to get in and just even try to get the ball off of you that you'll be pretty safe. Now there are like some exceptions, like if they get really good rolls with like Corsair or something, the ball could magically disappear or something. But Clone also gives you that extra bit of safety that they have to use something else on you before that, and I don't know. I feel like Snakeskin would be my recommendation if you want a ball holder or someone to basically just keep the ball away from them. Because really against a scoring Fisherman team, all you're trying to do is just prevent them from getting to the third goal and slowing them down as much as possible, because their journey to try to even like kill you is going to be like the most arduous thing ever, unless it's like a mascot. They have such a hard time killing people. If it's like your typical Shark scoring team. If it's Corsair, then like it changes a little bit because they have like Corsair can actually potentially like help beat people down, and they can pull you into like the pit of despair and then and do some work on you. But other than that, I think that I'd suggest Snakeskin. It's not like a sexy player, and lots of people forget about Snakeskin, and it's also a dead player in the lore, but so good at holding the ball and keep away. So I would suggest that. And
They killed Snakeskin in the lore. I didn't read that.
Yeah, it's
That's funny.
Yeah, it's near the end, but yeah.
Dang it! I love that model too.
Oh, I think the
Let's
model's
see.
awesome.
Playing as Fish, I didn't have a hard time against Alchemist. I mean, the second game I was on fire and the other status effects, but I did tough it out. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that matchup in general? Alchemist versus Fish. I think seems like
yeah, you can go.
From what and like I said, our scene is very, very brand new. Seems like our Fish player isn't the least bit worried about beating Alchemist teams. Like he's like, oh yeah, whatever, condition game, not really worried about that. As long as I can keep the ball and keep it moving, I'll have enough momentum to clear conditions. So there's not a whole lot they can do to me. And it sounds a little haughty, but it's true that he hasn't lost to an Alchemist team. So I don't know what to say there.
I think it depends on the strategies being employed. Kind of like how like a lot of people will just kind of score against Fish too, and like they actually would rather you score against them in a lot of cases, unless it wins you the game, because it just means they get the ball and they get to run up and score again, and try to control it that way. But you like we were talking about earlier, there is an Alchemist team you can build that literally just controls the ball and can actually control it better and play it better, just like his equal or just as good a football game as Fish. Plus, you have a rush keeper on your goal that can also affect that. So I think that team has a pretty good shot of beating Fish. I don't think that conditions necessarily are going to stop Fish like you're kind of saying. I don't think that they're going to be like, well, I'm on fire, so end of this journey. It's like they have so many people that are so mobile that can score that they can simply just make up for the fire and just like passing the ball around and stuff. So I think it's more about like all factions going to have to do is you have to slow them down, give the ball to someone that can either run away to some place that's going to pull them way out and just waste their time, so that you can eventually get them into late game where they suffer, because then everybody starts dying and comes back on really ridiculously low health. And especially if you have someone that can sit in their back lines, especially one of the players that has like the I forget what the abilities call off the top of my head, but it's like basically when it's like if you have a damage target, they gain plus charge. And then they basically kind of like sweep, like. Oh
yeah, mark target.
Yeah, mark target. But basically, like they just kind of like sweep that backfield, and then that backfield as they bring players on, and so it almost becomes a point where it's like it's very dangerous for them to bring back on like anybody like Angel, especially who has like 4 hit points or something. It's like, okay, well they're instantly dead if they come back on. So kind of put them in that checkmate, and then it's really hard. And then especially once you get to 8, you can even score at that point and then win the game. But I don't think it's easy. I think that Fish play the football game very, very well, and they're so mobile and slippery that it does become hard. But you have to be prepared to play the right strategy against them, and know that you can't play a normal game where you're like, oh, scoring is like okay. It's like, no, well, it's actually what they want, and they're going to do it better than you, so you have to be prepared.
To the Snakeskin comment, I almost feel that if you can keep the ball away from fish for a turn or even a turn and a half, they're going to have an uphill climb. So if you can actually hold onto the ball for the entire turn somehow, or even try to put it in at the end of a turn, I think you've given the fish an uphill battle.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So snakeskin in there is a really good idea. I hadn't really considered her for that. She hasn't done much on my Masons team, but I don't think she necessarily fits my Masons team and the way I play them. But when I was playing Union last night, she was actually doing quite a lot for that team.
Yeah, because like you look at her and like she basically is like everything you would want to play against fish. She's nimble. You could have nimble and clone up, so you get to ignore and have a dodge potentially on an attack against you. You have 5 defense once nimble's up, and then most fish players that are going to come and try to get the ball from you are male. So you have charmed male, so you get the +1 defense from that. So now you're like a 6 defense clone model. And even if they've already engaged you, you have Shadow-like to go 2 inches. So unless they're base to base, you're away and you can run away with the ball or something. Like
Right.
Seems pretty good. If I could take her in Morticians, I would against fish, just for fun. Just like, here you go, thanks, kid.
Mm-hmm.
Run away with the ball. Ironically,
Let's see.
she also plays for fishermen.
Here's some more comments here. The strategy I try to use is keep passing the ball, like Audible plays in football, keep tossing the ball back. Yeah, we see a lot of that here with our fish player. Have you guys tried Harry the Hat for Union, considering us fish are not happy about burning? I've never actually even seen him on the board, so I don't know. I don't really know what to say about Harry the Hat.
I haven't seen him played either. I would say that.
I guess
Yeah, I'd say we talked a little bit about burning. I don't know about you, but I feel like burning is really good against teams that are already slow. Like you put burning on Brewers, and they're like, well, my base move is now 2, like,
yeah.
And they're easy to hit, and you're like, sweet. We're Fisher. It's like I put burning on you, and then like Grayscales is like, cool. I still have Where'd They Go, and like, or like they have an already high base move, and they're just like, that's great. Or they generate that 1 momentum clear, and they're like, okay, like, seems good. I don't think burning to me like doesn't feel like an answer against them that actually slows them down. Even though like you're like, oh, mobility things, that should be the thing that like actually works. But in my experience, it hasn't been great. Like when I've used embalming fluid with silence, like it actually if I could hit multiple targets, which like against most good fish players, they're spread out pretty well, so that doesn't actually happen. But if I can, then that's valuable. But if it's like one guy at a time or something like that, it's not super valuable in my opinion to slow them down, or effective at slowing them down.
Yeah, my experience with burning is all from Mercury, and it's kind of like, sadly, I was using it more for the damage than it was for the movement, because they would clear it, and because they're usually trying to clear like poison or something else too, so it's just more efficient. It's like it didn't necessarily give me anything special. It was just another condition that could get cleared and damage associated with it. Sadly, I don't think like Mercury really hasn't come up significant for me when I was playing Alchemist. I think for the condition stuff and that end of it, Calculus was more my workhorse for that. Mercury, it was kind of cool to get the little extra influence for hanging out with Flask, but I didn't really get a whole lot of mileage out of him personally. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, that's it for the comments for now. But yeah, I do miss my Alchemists already. But I'll come back to them. Right now, though, I really think I'm going to be playing more Union, which I never saw that one coming. They were like at the time they were like the least interesting team for me. But now that I have some like silly hodgepodge lineup that can actually play rather fun, I'm I'm interested in playing them more. They're going to be my, they're my what I call the JV squad. They're not the. I'll break these out for more fun games, and because I have a Union team made up entirely of models that I absolutely love. So adding like models for additional power to the team is really a secondary thing. Like I really like the Fangtooth model, so, and I think he's super funny, so I may add him to the team at some point. But as of right now, I have the 5 models that I really like. The Blackheart model is freaking amazing. I did not know that model was that cool. But when I painted him the other day, and I looked at him, I was like, wow, he looks like a Genghis Khan type model, like a Mongolian type model, and he's got that big sword with the pain rings on it that I think it's so cool, and that really cool what's it called? The really cool patterning on his cloak and stuff. I was like, man, this is a really, really awesome model. So pretty stoked to put him on the field finally. And then that was also my first time playing Gutter. So Gutter and Blackheart, and then I got to see like I said, I got to see Snakeskin do a lot more. Snakeskin, Mist, and I think that's it. That's the team. Let's see. How about characters that cause blind like Hemlock? She's kind of the medic. Yeah, blind is a cool ability. It did get nerfed, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know. I want to get Hemlock because I also like the miniature. I don't know how well she's actually going to do on the lineups I want to run.
Well, I'm going to sign out, guys, but I'll be sure to watch the rest of this tomorrow.
Oh, cool,
right.
Yeah.
Later, man. I got Pinkberry delivered, so now I have to eat Froyo.
Yeah, no worries. I'll ramble here while I'm painting.
I can still talk. It just has to be between Froyo bites.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing about Union was a massive turnoff for me. It's like, okay, here's a bunch of Merc models, and my assumption was, that they were gonna play like, a whole team full of solos, and they do. They kind of play like a whole team full of solos, but absolutely enjoyed how Blackheart plays. I really like how he plays. He does, in a lot of ways, he reminds me of, it would be almost like if you had married up Honor and Ox. It's kind of how I see him. So that was really fun. And then the idea that, with a Union team, it has a similar aspect like Masons, where you can pick, okay, who's my superstar going to be for the turn, and then you can make that player your superstar. Also, really liked Coin. I think Coin is an awesome mascot. So they have a lot going for them that I really hadn't thought about until I played them last night, and I was like, you know what, I could see myself playing this team on a fairly regular basis, especially against like for learning games and newer players and stuff. I don't see them as being the team I want to play all day in a tournament.
Yeah. Like
Masons, I totally see that. But, for one-offs and stuff like that, I totally see it. Like if I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to play Masons because I feel they're my comfort zone, and I want to play, something that I play a little bit more of a relaxed or a learning game. That's when I want to play. Do you have experience playing Union at all, Talon?
Yeah, so I actually haven't played. I actually haven't really played much Blackheart. I've played mainly the Veteran Rage.
Okay.
Because I love that model so much.
It's a fantastic model.
And I like the idea too that he can make other models attack, which is just very fun when you have like it's kind of like thinking about it as in like you get an extra. Not only does he have like the bloody coin thing or whatever that you can like with his legendary, but you can also it's kind of like you're adding his influence to those other models. So like you could essentially have something disgusting like a 8 influence Gutter essentially is what it ends up being, because Gutter goes in, Scything Blows does whatever Gutter does, pulling people towards her, and then Venture Rage charges for free or does whatever he's doing, and then he's like, hey Gutter, you want to do like 4 more Scything Blows? And Gutter's like, yeah, I'd love to do 4 more Scything Blows. And you're like, boom, do it. Like, and if you legendary player, it's disgusting. Like it's like it's like it definitely plays very killy and gives them synergy. Like a lot of the Union, like you're talking about their individual players, but the captains are kind of like what make them cohesive and give stuff. And I think Rage is very cool because he's very much all about is like I'm all about the Union, even to the point where he has an ability where it's like if he's against other Union, he's like, you're a traitor. I'm actually better against you for being a traitor. Like that kind of stuff is pretty cool. So I like the way they went with it. Now, obviously, he's like way more one-dimensional than Blackheart. I think Blackheart's like awesome because he is that MVP captain that can kind of like Obulus or Midas or a lot of captains that he's like, okay, like cool, I can be super mobile, I can go kill someone, I can go score, like whatever you want me to do, like just let me know and I'll go do that. Where Rage is like, I'm not really gonna score, I'm just gonna go and I'm telling you that I'm kind of like Ox. It's like I'm gonna come and I'm gonna beat the crap out of you, and I'm gonna have this death zone that if I'm allowed to get in with my guys mobbing the crap out of you, it's gonna be a bad day. But I love to play that to play them and play Veteran Rage. I find it pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna play my really squishy fun lineup with Union for a while.
That's fun. I don't know, I find a lot of joy playing the models that people hate on, because the advantage of them is that people don't play against them. Like it's kind of like when you first start any War Machine or any tabletop game, part of like the battle is like learning what your opponent's models do, and after a while playing like against the same standard models, you're like, okay, I know exactly what that does. Like I've played this out a few times, so I kind of know what to expect. I have some like formula in my head. But when you just like randomly throw in a model that like you never even see, then like okay, it's like now it's do effect. It's like what's their playbook? Like what are they actually gonna do to me? Or I don't know. It's an X factor. So it kind of is fun in that way. Where like when you play like a Meat Hook or a Tower or someone that no one usually plays against, they're like, huh, like what is this?
I fielded Meat Hook in my my Butchers team because I really like the model.
I do too, man.
I want to run. What's that?
I said I do too. I love that model.
And I want to run. So I ran the Butchers team I ran was essentially what I'm hoping to run when I pick up Fillet. So it's got a lot of smaller squishy models in it. I didn't take Shank, but I do plan on including him. But I did take Meat Hook, and I didn't even know Meat Hook had tooled up. Like I didn't even know. That's ridiculous. How come? Like, why aren't people fielding Meat Hook tooled up on Butchers? That's crazy. Like, why aren't you taking that?
I can tell you exactly why, and it's because the stats guys, the stats guys that play competitive tournaments look at her, and it's the same story with Graves, right? Like Graves is a good model if you give him influence, but they're always going to point to the fact that he generates 1 and he wants like 3 or 4, and then they're going to go like, that's not great. Now, the argument for Meat Hook is like tooled up, much like marbles, is like totally worth. Like you're like this this model that I put this on is going to keep more damage. I think for Butchers, because Ox was the only captain for a long time, it's kind of like, well, Ox gives that to me by just like him being Ox and being in the area. So tooled up necessarily is valuable. I already do enough damage. Like maybe I don't need as much. And at that point, then like you kind of go down the argument of like 1 influence, not super influence efficient. I think that's why people didn't play her. But now with play, you have much more of an argument of hey, I don't have tooled up. This also gives me movement control with a heroic play. Like, actually seems like it could be a playable character.
And then The thing I was and yeah, I think it sounds on paper it sounds disgustingly amazing. Like, oh, so if I go tooled up with Ox with Legendary, you know, that's 4 damage on my lowest result on anybody, and like, wow, that's totally amazing. But it is kind of overkill. I can totally see where the counter is to that. So, you know, against maybe against newer players, and you're if you're spreading a bunch of influence around, you could pick your character to tool up, and then that character becomes kind of the takeout character for the turn. But yeah, I guess I can see where it might end up just kind of being redundant on a squad that's that good at dishing out damage. You know, it's not like you're going to only score 1 success every single time you swing. So, yeah, I can kind of see it.
Yeah, I think it's like for factions like engineers that have range plays that are typically low damage, they're going to have to peck you to death. Like having tooled up super significant. Someone like Morticians that like they don't necessarily have the greatest like beaters. Throwing tooled up on Obulus now turns his 8 clip into like just devastation. Like you can probably kill 2 people with that, depending on like how much health they have or like what the hells are at in a certain area, because he has 2 inch reach and like he can go do the work and has enough influence. So the value for tooled up in those factions is like really good. Something like Brewers too, like they have commanding aura, and like having it stacked on someone could just give you a big huge alpha strike, which is great. But then someone like Butcher, just look at them and across the board, they're like, we're generating 1 billion momentum and like have momentous 2 damage on like all our playbooks, and like, and we have this guy that just generates a damage aura. So there's like, why take her when I could take someone that gives me like more support kind of abilities, or yeah.
I think tooled up with someone like with Hammer is going to be amazing, though.
Oh yeah.
I think it's going to be crazy with Hammer. I am really amped to try him now. I was kind of down on him for a while. I was like, I kept saying, I don't think I'm going to run him. I think Honor is too much fun. But I don't know. The more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I could totally see myself playing that. I could totally see myself playing that playstyle with Masons. And you know, tooled up and his buffs stacked on a model like Hammer. But don't forget, you can also do the exact same thing to Mallet. Oh man, that's pretty amazing. Let's see. So my future team I want to try to build consists of Ox, Brisket, Boiler, Princess, Rage, and Avarice and Greed. Interesting. Brisket. Okay, so it's the starter set with the mascot, and then Rage and Avarice and Greed. That's a really beady team, and then I guess you're using Brisket for your striker. I don't know. What do you think of that lineup?
I would say it sounds. I think Rage kind of falls into the same thing as the same conversation we just had about tooled up on Meat Hook, where he's another good beater, but I think the opportunity cost lost by not having Shank or Boar is actually pretty huge, specifically because Boar has his limitations, like most people know. But the thing about him is that he has 2 inch reach in a faction that has very little 2 inch reach. Same with Shank. Like like when I play against Morticians against Butchers, the number one thing I'm looking at is like, how can I get rid of Shank or deal with Shank? The other characters aren't as much, but because like, you know, Gas can pretty much like put a stop button on Boar, which is disgusting. But mainly it's Shank because he's the only one that can actually threaten Obulus. Everybody else is 1 inch, so if they attack Obulus, he's like, okay, well, unpredictable movement out of the way, and you've done nothing. And 2 inch reach is actually probably arguably one of the best stats to have in the game. And I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah.
And in a faction where
I agree.
you have not. I mean, not only is like Shank have 2-inch reach, but he's actually just an amazing model. And has like a 3, like he has like a Mentis 3 with dodges, which is like disgusting, and he like has like a billion range and can be like a alternate striker for your team. It's just a hard case to make to take him over some of those other models. I think Avarice and Greed is potentially one of the strongest kind of not super played models because he costs like as much as a starter team. And so like one is a huge investment. But on the other part, like he has like the downside to Avarice and Greed is Greed being only 4 hit point model, like kind of like having Dirge around, but without the -4 momentum to kind of make you feel better when they die. So it's kind of like 2 VPs that is very fragile that you have to kind of hide. But the activation advantage in a Butcher's team, I could see being really amazing, and I think that could be like actually a really solid play into Butchers. So I'd almost encourage, like, I mean, go do your thing. I don't think the team's bad. I just think that the team I'm more afraid if your team involves Shank instead of Rage. Probably in that case. Because then you're looking at, because not only, because the normal thing with Butchers is like, you're like, okay, we're going to like nimble Shank and maybe even give him tough skin. So he's like a 5-1 or like whatever we want to give him to make him survivable if we need to, or whatever you kind of want to do. Usually because if you get the ball first, like they have a chance to respond and potentially like kill him. So you want him to go and put down a bunch of like damage, like murder people, but still be resilient that he survives any reprisal. Where Avarice and Greed basically says, even if I'm going first, like Shank could be last. And that's actually pretty huge for your team at that point, because you're not sinking the influence on him either too, to like, you don't have to buff him up because it's going to fall off at the end of the turn anyways. So I think that could actually be really good, because then Shank becomes that end of turn missile where you're like, all right, the board is set. I know, like I have the range to pretty much go wherever I want and kind of whack on someone and generate a bunch of momentum and damage. Like, where do I want to go? Which seems pretty good to me. Yeah,
that's part of what makes like your superior strategy Flint so amazing, is you can that your last you can guarantee that that's the last activation of the turn, and you have a super mobile model that can tackle and score easily in an activation.
Yeah.
I actually do want to pick up Avarice and Greed at some point. I think, though, they're kind of low on the list for me. I really, really like the model, but I don't see myself running them a whole lot.
I like that it's a gateway, like, hobbyist model, like, because it comes with the magnets and like the ability to like swap in the Greed and to have them on or off. Like, there's like a plate for when Greed's detached and a plate where Greed is on. And I thought that was really cool that they did that. My model of Avarice and Greed actually somehow got glue in there, so I have the part where Greed's not on locked on, and I haven't got a way to actually remove it yet. So I was kind of upset by that, but
that sucks.
It really does suck, because it's not like it was like a cheap model either. So I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know how much I care, because if I think about it, at least it wasn't with like Greed on, because I actually feel like most of the games you'll probably have him detached turn 1 and then be running Greed around like behind your goal or whatever the heck you're gonna do with him. Like, maybe you take him upfield with you, but that sounds really scary against like most factions.
Sure,
because their mobile guy Nat is just gonna be like, all right, look, it's like free VP, let's go for it. Their Shank is basically coming for him.
Let's see. That's why I wanted to run it by you guys first, because I keep looking over at the Brewers, because kind of sideline D&D models too. You play Brewers, right? Or no, your wife. You have a Brewers team for your wife.
Yeah, my wife plays Brewers.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what questions you have about Brewers, but I can answer most of them. I've played probably most of my games against them and Masons.
Nice. Now, do you consider Brewers to be like a steep learning curve team, or are they, are they a little more intuitive than, say, an Alchemist or a Mortician's team?
I say there's somewhere in between. Like again, I think that fish and butchers are the gold standard of like faster learning curve. And the
Yeah.
brewers are somewhere in the middle. And the reason I say somewhere in the middle is because they're one of the factions that, especially in the tapper led teams, have a lot of potential to do good things, but also can at times struggle to generate momentum. And so it can actually be a tricky team for some brewer players because you have a slower team that you need to be pretty deliberate with how you get them into combat and engage them and generate momentum. That if you don't plan that out correctly, you can find yourself going second a lot, and then they're very easy to hit. And even though they have tough skin, they do have a lot of models that are like easier to take out. And Scum is also a huge liability, especially in a tapper led team, because once Scum goes down, then you effectively lose like 2 influence, and that really sucks for them because they're already like a 12 influence average team. So now you're like a 10 influence average. Granted, they do have like old Jakes on tapper to generate some of the extra momentum, but again, like it requires him to like go and generate the momentum, and like so they definitely have a kind of like a process where it's like, yeah, they have a lot of potential for great things. You get to knock people down. Stave is fun because you're basically Gragas and you get to throw a barrel and blow people around and knock people down, and that's like a ton of fun. But I also think they have some intricacies with how they generate momentum that it's very easy to have. If you have you can have a dud turn with them very easily if stuff doesn't go right.
Sure. I can see where the mobility that's been my main aversion to brewers is I worry that I can't play a team quite that slow. And the other thing too is they kind of have that they have that Mason susceptibility to character plays too.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've got the tough skin and all that stuff. But yeah, it is easier to activate plays off of them.
Yeah, I think it's a brutal Morticians matchup for them. I think they do have a lot of really awesome tools that could make them more mobile. Mainly in Spigot, whose heroic will give everybody +2/+2, which is great. I think Esther's is amazing for them as an addition because she can actually buff their movement as well. So they have some ways where they can definitely get more mobile and surprise you. And I think that Stave is also the other model that you want to kind of... The downside is he's a momentum battery in a lot of cases. The upside is that he can barrel people into a knockdown stance towards you and actually make those charges happen as well, which makes him also a very big threat and someone that people are going to eye a lot. And he takes a bit to take down as well because he's tough skin, but he has 2+0 armor, so that means they're doing whatever they want to him and they're generating whatever they want off of him. So that's the kind of downside to him. But otherwise, he's a fun model as well that can kind of give brewers mobility in a way that normally they would be a slow team, but he can kind of bring the targets to them, knocked down and already served up on a platter.
Lob Barrel does seem like a really, really fun ability.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most fun abilities in the game. Like as far as like what it does, like now, like he can make it deal damage, which is okay, but I think that if you ever catch multiple people like bunched up, like being able to knock down multiple targets is just good. And then anything that lets you reposition someone else's model is extremely good. And I think it's taking me a long time to realize even how good like pushes are in the game and valuing pushes more than I currently do. Cause I started out and I'm like, oh, dodge is cool because like, especially with Obulus, it's momentous and he like gets around people and he goes and he scores. And like, that's how I kind of thought about, I was like, oh, dodges are really good, damage, all that kind of stuff. But pushes, like putting someone's model where they didn't expect it to be and moving it into even like moving into combat with more of your models, pushing them away, pushing models out of combat of you, is way better than I think that people initially, like a new player will come in and be like, I don't know how I feel about pushes, but it can actually be one of like the
better pushing them out of bounds.
Yeah,
pushing them off the sideline.
Exactly. That's actually a way to get some victory points even. Which I see that question come up a lot. It's like, what happens if they like around like models getting pushed out of bounds?
That's kind of where like I'm warming up to a model like Tower, and especially with Hammer coming in, I'm like starting to look at that, looking at his pushes and even Brick's pushes and Tower. I'm sorry, and Hammer, and you're like, yeah, pushes. You could actually build a really good Masons team that's really good at pushes and scoring pushes. And obviously Mallet. You gotta have Mallet in there. Man, so the other week, the week before, I played that Masons game, 5 Girls and a Monkey, which was, honor, harmony, chisel, snakeskin, and who's the other one? Who am I missing? Snakeskin, and there was another. Decimate for my Masons team. So
Nice.
So no Mallet and no Flint, and man, that was rough. That was quite an adjustment. Super fun team though. Super fun team because you have like a really really fun ball handling team that can go super mobile, and then then you can do fun stuff with so you can do the chisel, and then you can also do like the honor harmony activation stuff with second wind, which is amazing. So super fun team, but man, that was rough without my bread and butter players.
But see, that's the fun, right? Is you get to be like, what is life like without the all stars that you normally pump influence into, which is part of the fun of line. Like that's why I think I like it when people like you are fun with experimenting. Like you've been like running through all the unit through the teams. That's what people really should do, because a lot of times it's very easy with, especially like people get competitive. They're like, I gotta run what's optimal and what the internet says is good, and then you get to play these fun lineups like that team. But yeah, you can definitely feel when you have like those really reliable players, their absence has felt very easy. Like I had like the reverse sensation because I started Morticians without Silence, and then when I got Silent, when I started playing Silence, I was like, why didn't I play this guy before? I actually didn't like his model, which is why I didn't normally play him. And I also listened to the internet where everything I read said he's an influence battery. And I was like, I don't want an influence battery. Let me like grab these big guys that look cooler. And then I was like, oh no, he's like arguably like one of the best control models in the game. It's like being able to choose.
What exactly makes Silence such a great control model? Is it shutout or what am I not seeing with him?
It's shutout and tucked in combination, and the fact that he can very easily generate momentous damage off of, because he has a 2 damage playbook, and he also has an AoE ability that can light people on fire and creates a poison cloud. So that in turn can actually control some form of space and actually movement. But mainly it's the fact that if you give him 4 influence, he can, and there's someone within melee range, he can walk up, hit them twice, generate the 2 momentum, then you basically shut out and tucked whoever, like it's 8-inch range, so you can put yourself in a position where you can actually hit the models you want, and you can bonus time it and get 2 dice on it, which is against most people is going to be pretty good odds that you hit them, unless they're like a really high like 5 influence type model, something like that. The other bonus is because so negative modifiers for character plays are before you bonus time. So it will never, if you bonus time, it'll never be worse than 2 dice, which actually is kind of like a buff for like one momentous play or one influence character plays that normally like that kind of sucks.
Sure.
So if you put anything on them, they're always gonna have at least 1 dice, and you're gonna bonus time. So you're at least 2 with it. And against especially against Masons, it's amazing because essentially what you look at it is that if you're able to tuck someone and choose who goes next, you kind of almost get like 2 first activations with it, because you're going generate momentum. You pick a model that they have that has no influence on them, hopefully, or is not in an advantageous position. Maybe they're already like knocked down or something from last turn, and you're like, that model's next, and they're like,
well, I can't generate momentum. They're just going to stand back up unless someone's in melee. They're doing nothing. That sucks.
Yeah.
And then you could take their model, like, you take their Ox, you take their Tapper. That's like that key you want to go first model that either old Jakes and generates the momentum and puts up commanding aura and that kind of stuff, or like walks forward and sets up the turn. And you say that model's going last, and then they're like, oh god, like
yeah.
Or you pick their model that has all the influence. You're like, that model's last, and they're like, well, I guess I'm doing the other things first. And then if you're able to kill that model, that's even worse, because now you've given yourself a lot of time to set up that model's demise, because you now have like your next 5 activations, if you're going first, can all be towards that model's demise.
Yeah, so if you have like your and Midas is defense 5, but still, if you have your 7 influence Midas in front of you and you shut out Midas, that's awful.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a bad turn.
Yeah.
Let's see. Some more. Okay, so here's the Esther's lineup that Blade Wolf's talking about. Esther, Stave, Spigot, Scum, Hooper, and Friday. I don't know enough about Brewers to comment on that lineup.
What is it?
Esther's, Stave.
Yeah.
Esther, Stave, Spigot, Scum, Hooper, and Friday. So it looks like it's all in guild. It's basically Esther's with there's no what's his name in there. The fire guy's not in there.
Stoker.
Yeah, but it's pretty much that standard season 1 team with Esther's.
I think it's pretty good. I think Esther's like Tapper's like commanding aura and like buddy cop play with Hooper's pretty good, but you have a lot of really good threat with Esther's that is gonna kind of like, instead of be the influence hog that goes and tries to kill stuff and generate momentum to put up like commanding aura and set up the turn, like she's gonna take way less influence, instead kind of distribute that to her team so that they actually can do more, which actually is kind of scary in Brewers, especially because with her and Spigot, you have the chance to actually make Brewers super mobile, which is another really scary proposition. So I think that team's actually pretty good. Like that's a pretty good team you could play in any game. It can do a lot. I think that playing Stoker with Esther's is really good, only because Stoker, normally the reason he's tough in Tapper lineups is because, again, like you'll have a lot of other influence hungry models. So Stoker kind of can be either you're putting it all on Stoker and hoping that pays off, or there's just not enough influence to go around. Where Esther's is kind of like, yeah, like I have enough influence for you now. Like go like wreck people, Stoker. And also, by the way, I can give you like damage buffs or mobility buffs to make you do even more. So I like it.
I don't see a lot of Stoker in a lot of Brewers lineups. Is it just because he's that much of a different play style?
Yeah,
than
he's
the
like
other models.
He's an acquired taste model, I would say. Like he doesn't initially do like he's not like upfront going to be as easy to like get the most out of, but he has a lot of really good plays that if executed like potentially can do a lot of stuff. He also has some dead plays, right? Like burn the floor is a ability you're rarely ever going to use. But like magical brew and stuff like that, where like he can actually also remove conditions again into certain matchups, is amazing. Like against like alchemists or other brewers teams or anybody that's trying to knock him down, he's gonna get to stand up for free every turn if you've knocked him down before he activates. So he's really reliable in that sense. His fire plays are like like he does give you some range with that if you really had to use it, but like it's usually not necessarily what you want to use. You kind of want him to do his human fireball thing and like go in there, burn a bunch of people, and like deal a bunch of damage. But yeah, usually I think it's just like he's an influence sink for the team, and normally you're gonna want to put that on the other models of your team, especially if you're running like Stave and Hooper and Tapper and that kind of stuff. So with Esther's, she does have the ability to give him that, and Esther's can do stuff with like low to no influence, and That's pretty good.
Thematically, though, he's super fun. Just the whole idea behind Stoker.
Yeah,
It's
his
like,
model's awesome.
yeah, every time I see that model, I was like, I want to play Brewers just to put him on there. But I also realize, like, there's a reason why people aren't taking him. But still, I totally want to put him on the board.
Yeah, the other cool thing is a 4 playbook. So he's like Momentous. Yeah, he's Momentous 3 on 4 hits, which is awesome. And he generates more influence with Stave. I forgot about that. Yeah, he's cool.
Let's see. Hemlock on Brewers with Stave and Esters is dirty. I don't.
It's
Okay.
yeah, I haven't played against Hemlock a lot. I've played as Hemlock. I'd be interested to know what the dirtiness of the combo is, besides the fact that she can like remove conditions.
Stave and Esters. I don't know.
She has blind, which is good, but
Okay. So moving along here. I don't feel like I painted this really. It looks exactly like it did when I started.
yeah, dude, like that.
It's not bad,
completely
though.
just great. No, sure.
It's the look I was going for, so it does look exactly how I imagined it. I did say I'm going slow tonight. I'm not painting like anything extravagant. This is just my goals are to date are really, really simple. They just look like kind of like statues and stuff. So no award-winning painting going on. Not that there ever is, but particularly tonight, it's like painting a piece of scenery and being okay with it.
Hey, I mean, what's not award-winning to you is award-winning to someone. So
Yeah.
I mean, it looks good from here, like on your camera.
I think it'll look great when it's on the board, on the opposite side of another custom goal. You're like, oh, cool, custom goals. It's kind of what I'm going for. I was really struggling to find inspiration for goals. Like I went through my bits box and found a bunch of really cool bases, but they don't really make goals. And I'll show you an example of that in a second here, as soon as I'm done painting the black on this, because I've been trying to be a little more creative about making goals, especially while I'm waiting for product to arrive here in Orange County. I'm told that Comic Quest should have it Friday. I'm hoping they do, so that way when we do our little demo day thing, people actually can go to the shelves and pick up stuff. But
I hope so too, because I have
hoping
to grab an Alchemist starter still.
All right, so let's let that. Wow, that really did repel a bunch of the paint on the base here. So let's let that dry for a moment. Okay, what was I supposed to do? I was supposed to. What did I say I was gonna? Totally forgot.
Show me the other goals or bases you had that weren't really goals.
Oh yeah. Here's the one that I've been struggling with, right? So I have this really cool secret weapon kind of techie diamond plate goal. This would be more of a sci-fi goal, but I'm looking at it and going, I could probably do something for, say, engineers with this goal, maybe even like alchemists or something. But I'm just like at a total loss as far as like what do I put on it. There was that Kevin's goal which had the cool gears and stuff on it, but like, oh man, that black rolled right off this model. I'm gonna have to fix. Oh, that's why. Jeez, I used the wrong black. That's gonna be a problem. Anyway,
did you use
that's
ink?
gonna be a problem. Anyway, so I was looking at that and I was like, I have these weird, like these Mantic things, which are way too sci-fi. This I could probably paint to look more like alchemist-y type thing, but none of these are like, okay, so like assuming that worked, there's nothing here that still is like, oh, that's a cool looking goal. This looks like an ammo like supply thing. It doesn't look like a goal at all. But I love this base. Still have no idea what to do with it. Then I have a bunch of Malifaux bases, like Malifaux 50 mil bases that are really cool. Like I have the Victorian base and the Ghost Town base and the Docks base. And I'm like, well, the no-brainer is, turn the Docks base into a fisherman goal. So I could do something like that. But then I'm still thinking, like, what do I actually put on the goal?
Yeah.
This, I could take a Reaper pirate model or something, and then like paint something like that, like a statue. That would look pretty neat on the goal. Or even this would be a funny, like a Blackheart goal. Take Captain R here, which I never really got around to finish painting, but I can take him and make him like a statue on a goal. This is an Arena Rex model. This is just a lion, which is hilarious. So it's like, okay, well, that could be my hunter's goal, is just use the actual lion as the goal. And all my Arena Rex stuff is on like these marbleized looking bases, so it actually does look like fancy enough to where they would consider that a goal. So I don't know. I'm curious to look at other people's goals and always trying to make ones of my own. I have I also have like a Mortician's base or a Morgue base, which would be perfect for Morticians. And then I have this thing. This is like the Arch of Evil. So that could be part of a goal. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'd have to build around it. It's slightly too big for a 50. That's one of the issues. So like it will actually fit end to end across the center of a 50, but I could build something around that. So still playing around with goal ideas, and I totally need to repaint this base. You can see that the black just slid right off of it. That was not good. All right. So that paint should never ever exist in my collection of paints. Here we go. Here's some actual black paint. Let's put some real black paint on. See how we do. Trunk of alchemical. Oh wait, let's read the earlier comments. Esther getting someone stuck in by Earth Blast on a model that already moved. Stave, if positioned properly, pushing that person into rough ground. Hemlock dropping Nauseous Blast. Okay, so you got it. You're talking like more of an area control type of lineup, which is pretty cool. Trunk of alchemical bottles in a chest with green stuff fireworks. If I can figure out how to do fireworks on a goal, I'm kind of in. That's
sounds pretty cool to me.
I would totally want to do that. I don't know how I would do it, but I'd totally be down for that. So yeah, I think at this point I will be playing. I'm gonna keep my Union players around. I need to pick up a coin. So once I get coin, I have a playable Union team. And they're going to be my kind of for fun team, while I look for shop for what my second string team is going to be. I keep thinking it's going to be engineers or alchemists. I'm still kind of stuck on those two teams because I really like both of those teams. I'm starting to get more and more excited about engineers, mainly because right now there's like only one engineers player that I know of in the area. So, and I know, Callan, you just painted up some engineers. Wait, you painted up alchemists and engineers. Or
No,
you...
just engineers. I painted up Compound, who is
Oh yeah, that's right.
can do both, but yeah, I have it. I have an alchemist team minus Midas, so I'm trying to pick up a starter so I can actually have, and that'll put me up to a starting. I would have a tournament 8 for every guild at that point, and I'm slowly painting through them. I have fish and butchers here, ready to be painted, but I'm parting up the starters because I'm going to be doing some. On Monday, I'm doing another demo day at Riot and having a bunch of people come. So I'm trying to get that threes team lined up so I can help use that for demos. Because I think that is a good contrasting, even without the demo cards for him, which I could also print off. I think that's still like a really good contrasting like representation of the game to basically to play the butchers versus the fishermen. So I still like that because a lot of the other starters I've tended to go towards like something like Mason. I think Mason's starter is actually a pretty good representation of fun things in the game because they have the double activation. So it's fun for new players to be like, oh, this is like a really cool mechanic.
Yeah.
Brewers is also pretty good because they have a pretty balanced start and they get to knock down. They're pretty resilient, so they don't die super quickly, which is also fun for new players. And then there's like teams like Engineers, which are just like dumb to play, like I guess because there's like if all their character plays keep landing, then it's just not fun to play against. And then you have Morticians, which are cool, but then like Obvious tends to do everything, and it's not. I don't feel like their starters representative of how Morticians really play. And Obvious has like so much. It has like analysis paralysis for new players because they're like, wait, so what can I do with Puppet Master? Wait, I can do all that stuff with Puppet Master? Like, so I think Masons and Brewers so far has been my favorite to teach people to play with, just because it's like two teams that can beat each other up. They can also play football if they really want to, especially Masons. And Brewers have Friday, but they can kind of brawl and like have fun with it. Versus some of the other teams that can kind of be abusive in a threes game, or are just like.
What do you think about Masons versus Union? That starter.
I think that's a pretty good one. I think
because
Union
you get a little bit of balance with both starters, so you can football and you can beat up people on either side.
Yeah,
I've been thinking about running that.
That's a pretty good one. I also think Gutter's just a ton of fun to play. So like, give people Gutters, like, oh, I get to like scorpion people in and then beat them up. That's a lot of fun.
So I don't know. I'm gonna try that because I'm really because I have the fish and butcher demo, which is the standby, but I also want to have a secondary a secondary demo that highlights two other teams, and then that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I actually, I mean, if people want to play a faction, I don't tell them no. I just kind of like most people, like if I when I ask them, it's like, oh, what would you want to play? Like they're kind of like, well, tell me what would be a good start thing, which devolves into like what I had been giving. But part of the reason of getting other factions too is, especially in our group, we have a lot of people that are very like catching the bug and they want to make an informed decision on like what guild they want to pick up. So I just kind of take it upon myself. It's like, it's fun for me, and competitively it's good to play the other factions and know what they do so their weaknesses. And it's just fun to play other factions. Like the game's fun, spoilers. But in this way I can also be like, hey, like you want to play Engineers, and if you want to play a 6-man team, here, play it and like kind of see what it's like, or play the 3-man, see what it's like, and get like kind of like an idea. And then at that point, they can be like, oh, yeah, this is totally me, or this is not what I thought it was. Like, I'll go with this X faction or whatever when they're making a decision. So kind of start them off on the right foot so they're happy with their initial purchase, although I feel like it is a little hard to go wrong. But, yeah.
Okay, so I've heard a little bit about Speedball. Have you heard anything about that?
Like the 1 minute activations? Or
is that what that's referring to?
I believe that's what it is. They've played it at a few UK tournaments. I don't know if they've played it at Adepticon or any of the big cons yet. But essentially, what it is you play 6v6, but you have everybody's 1 minute activations. So eight influence Obelisk is very hard to play on 1 minute activations. But the idea is that it gets you running the game really quick. Obviously, scoring teams are better in 1 minute activations because attacks take time and scoring typically does not in most cases, unless you're doing something really fancy. So it kind of leans towards that, but it is a fun way to just play really, really ridiculously quickly. And like, of course, both of you are trying to rush, so it is very much like oh my god, I'm moving, I'm shooting and scoring, and like all that kind of stuff, which is fun. I don't like it more than timed games, but I think it's a cool change of pace and like a fun detour idea that they had.
Yeah, I timed out for the first time last night playing Union. Not really sure how that happened either, because I was like, thought I was playing fairly quick, but I did time out at the very, very end. So I hit timeout on my last takeout. So I scored 12 and timed out at the same time, which was perfect. But yeah, that was the first time I've ever timed out, and I don't know, 1 minute. That sounds awesome. But that certainly favors the other thing that's cool about it. Yeah, it favors scoring teams, but it also favors, playing a more balanced attack. So, you're going to put, instead of putting 7 influence on a guy, you're going to put 2 or 3, and try to get some important things done, and then move over quickly to the next guy. So I think that's kind of cool. I don't know. I may have to try it.
Well, you can play it this weekend if you want.
Yeah, the other thing I was looking at is like, okay, so I called it a newbie tournament, and I'll be honest with you, I still have no idea exactly what I want to do there. I want to get some people really just more experience playing games. So there's 2 ways we could do it. We could either do rounds and do shorter games, like to 8 or whatever. My only concern there is that really does favor scoring teams if we go only to 8, or we come up with some way of like, you would play to say 8, but that has to include at least 1 takeout or something. I don't know, something like that. But I need to figure out, like, how do we do a quick tournament where the rounds are, say, an hour long? Do we reduce the number of models on the field? Do we reduce the scoring limit? There's a few different ways we can approach it. But let's see. So yeah, that's something I need to think about the next few days here. So hunters will be selling like hotcakes, but I bet some will think this is not what I expected. Yeah, I think that's fair, because we still don't know anything about hunters. I already, I pre-ordered a team and it's already sold. So my team is, I'm going to get them in, I'm going to paint them, and then hand them over to another person immediately. But I don't know. I am interested in painting the hunters models, but I don't really want to learn a new team just yet. So I think everyone wins in that scenario. Let's see.
True story.
Scoring limit usually. Yeah, I don't know. We can play to 8, but I think that's fun. We could also play to 8 and limit it to like 4 models.
Yeah, I mean, you could do like starters and mascots or something.
Yeah, starters and mascots, and play to 8, and you'll get, you'll finish all the games in an hour.
Yeah, I generally prefer starters too, because they're it's more balanced than when you open up the game, because when you open up the game, there's like so many abusive things in small model. Like Stave, for example, in small model games is just like the most disgusting thing ever. Like, so it's like you need to have, like, I think the limiter of like just the starters plus a mascot is cool, because the only problem with starters that you normally run into when you run demo games is like there's all these abilities that new players are like, what's a mascot and who's this character and why can't I get the bonus off it? Because all the season 1 captains are pretty much Like, hey, like
Yeah.
look at me, like I do something with the mascot, like honor or whatever without marbles is very different than honor like with marbles, right? So that kind of
Yeah.
like leads to better stuff. It also kind of it's like a weird balancing mechanism too, because then fish like have salt and salt's like, hey, I'm a sea otter, like look at me. I think it was like Corey posted pictures like look at me just like sunbathe and eat cookies, and like that's my job in this game.
So we could do like starters only, but I think there's going to be enough people Saturday that already play that are just going to be looking for games. So I wonder if there's a way to accommodate that, where if you just showed up to the event and you want to learn how to play, where you can play just your starters, and or if you show up to the event and you have a full team, you get to play your full team. I wonder, maybe it's a little more open format where the two players that are matched up get to decide, like based on what they have available, what they're going to play. If they're going to play a starter only game, or if they're going to play a condensed scoring game with full teams. I don't know. Maybe, yeah.
I'm personally a fan of. I mean, depending on what restrictions there are, I'm also kind of a fan too of like, you could also just have you could also just play 6-man games, since it's kind of. I feel like 6-man games is also important too, because then it's less to absorb and it's not as quick, but at the same time, then it gets players exposed more to like what the standard game is, where 3v3 is kind of its own weird microcosm. So maybe you get 66, but then like the tools by which you win are not necessarily like whoever won the most games. Like maybe it's a voting thing like best sportsmanship, where you have other awards. They're kind of the prizes since the beginner tournament, versus like just like I won the most. Like maybe it's like scored the most goals, or like got the most takeouts, or like so other
I was thinking,
other tertiary things that aren't just purely like I won, I lost.
So like almost like an achievement list.
Yeah.
So if you did, well, a cool one would be, maybe an award for the player who ends up scoring the most goals against the most number of other players. So it's like your goal is to try to play as many different people during the day and score goals off of them. And then maybe a prize for the player who gets the most number of takeouts against the most number of other players. That could be fun. And then just leave it open format. Like play whoever you want, play whatever size game you want. And and the prizes are going to be, they're just going to be small prizes. There's not going to be, there's not going to be really nice stuff that we throw in. It's probably just going to be like store credit or something. But yeah, we'll do something like that. I think that'll be fun. Yeah, I think I like that. What do you think? Like most takeouts versus most number of players, and most goals versus most number of players.
Yeah, I think making it a social, like anything that drives like that kind of basically drives like, hey, I need to meet more players and play more games against people. Like I'm all for that. The only downside is if people are limited on time, they kind of they maybe can't play as many games. But I mean, I don't know. So I think it would be fun.
I think with the intent of, hey, you're just, especially if it's not, because the prizes are going to be minimal. It's like it's not really about trying to win something really cool. Today, you're going to try to play as many different people as possible and just have fun. So I think keeping the prize support to a minimum, and then encouraging people to play as many new people as possible, I think would be best.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Cool. So yeah, I'm totally done painting. Super lazy. All I did was I just paint goal, which I don't know.
I finished all the blues on my models, and I'm working on the green now, which is the two main colors for all my factions. Starter fish and starter butchers.
Oh, cool. Okay. Nice. Here's another model that's sitting on my desk right now that's on a 50. This is I'll move my goal over here for a sec. This is a Hell Dorado model, and I think I got this off an eBay sale, and it was already painted and assembled, and I just primed over it and hit it with a little zenithal to give a little bit of shadow.
That's
But
cool.
this might be an interesting looking, like I might be able to use that as part of a goal, like a hunter's goal. That might be kind of cool. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, it is now 11:30. I have to get up in about 6 hours and go to work. So I think I'm going to call it. Any other comments before we sign off here?
If anybody here watching wants to play Guild Ball games, they should come to Comic Quest this Saturday and play with us.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
Awesome.
I will be there. I'll probably bring some fun, ridiculous team, or maybe I'll play like a new team. Maybe I'll play Engineers since I haven't got a chance to really play them yet and have some fun. That's my main goal. Is just to like meet new people because I haven't got a chance to play with a lot of the people here and just play some fun games. So I'm
Nice.
excited.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, yeah, that's going to do it for the show. Thanks for joining us, Callan, and thanks, Cameron, when you watch this later. Hopefully we can meet up. I want to play a game with Cameron, the guys out in the IE too. We need to get some Guild Ball in Inland Empire. That should be good. But anyway, that's going to do it for the show. Want to thank everybody for watching. Have a good one, guys. Good night.